Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back. Our final interview for the morning is with Huda Ammori, co-founder of Palestine Action based in the UK, and that's where we cross over to. Assalamu alaikum to you, Huda. Welcome to the program.
Walaikum assalam. Thank you for having me.
Lovely to have you. And I see that obviously you guys at Palestine Action are outraged, as should the rest of the world be. You are saying that Action exposes the UN on Social Justice Day for buying Israelis' killer drones. And you have actually marked the United Nations World Day of Social Justice with an action calling out the United Nations hypocrisy. Tell us
Yes.
about this hypocrisy that you are so outraged about.
Yes, so it turns out that the United Nations has been a buyer of drones from Elbit Systems, which is Israel's largest arms firm. And they're buying these drones after they have been used and battle tested on Palestinians in the captive population of Gaza, which has been described by the world's largest open air prison. And even the UN said would be uninhabitable by 2020. And now we're in 2023. And these drones that are used to harass, surveil, and attack Palestinians in Gaza have then been developed and sold on to the United Nations for peacekeeping missions in Mali and the Congo, we believe. And they are buying these drones from a factory here in the UK in Leicester and also from Israel directly. And the factory in Leicester is also selling building drones, which are then exported to Israel. So from the very same factory, they are building drones to kill Palestinians, whilst also sending drones to the United Nations, who is supposed to be in support of the Palestinian people. And it's very clear that if you buy Elbit's drones or you are selling drones directly to arm the occupiers of the Palestinian people, then you are just as guilty in the ongoing oppression of the Palestinians. Because every time Elbit Systems makes a new contract for these drones, which they have used on the Palestinian people, it encourages them to continue the colonization of the Palestinian people because they continue to make a profit and can make more contracts with the places like the United Nations. And what's more is that in 2016, 2017, this factory in Leicester was actually struggling, Elbit's factory, and the UN basically threw them a lifeline by giving them these contracts, which has since allowed them to make even more weapons to give to the Israeli military to use against the Palestinian people. So on 20th of February, which is the UN Social Justice Day, we felt it was appropriate to call out the United Nations for their hypocrisy and for buying these drones in the first place. And for us at Palestine Action, who've been taking direct action against Elbit Systems to shut them down for over 2.5 years, it's clear that the UN are actually an obstacle at this moment for closing down this factory by continuing any contracts, and all of these contracts must end immediately now that it has been exposed.
I do know, Huda, that you and a whole host of activists have been very active protesting against this company, Albert's company. Two issues that will pop up in the minds of the global community around the world is, and I'm sure you do have, but they would ask for proof that these drones have been used in spying on and killing innocent lives in Palestine. And number two, have you guys petitioned or approached the UN to say what you are doing in the name of, it is such it's so ironical. They talk about social justice and they're celebrating Social Justice Day and Social Justice Week, and on the other hand they're supporting a factory that manufactures these killing machines, which ends up killing innocent lives, innocent women, children, and defenseless people. So can you respond to those two questions, please?
Yes, definitely. So in terms of the evidence, so these drones that they're buying are based on the Hermes 450, which there is plenty of evidence being used in countless assaults on Palestinians in Gaza and also in the West Bank as well. We have seen that recently. And these drones are normally marked as surveillance drones. And even as surveillance drones for people in Gaza, this is 24/7 harassment by their occupier, flying these drones over their heads. And Israel themselves recently admitted that all of these drones are armed and have been used in countless attacks, including against the four boys on a beach in Gaza in 2014 who were massacred by an Elbit Hermes 450 drone. And this is the drone that they have adapted and sold on to the United Nations. And Palestine Action used the UN Social Justice Day to send a message to the United Nations, and we have yet to hear a response from them. But we hope that within the next couple of weeks that they must have cut all of these contracts, because otherwise it's clear that the hypocrisy is turning more and more into complicity. And we were just as shocked to find this out, but none of this is hidden from the public, in the sense that this is information that you can find online. And it just took pulling the information together and taking the different pieces to show that there is clear complicity from the United Nations. And as you said, the hypocrisy and the of how many, we're aware of how many countless UN resolutions the Israel has violated, how many times the UN has called out what is happening in Palestine. But by investing in their occupier and their colonizer, then there is a clear conflict of interest here. And this complicity needs to end immediately. It's shocking for me as a Palestinian, as I'm sure it will be for everyone else. And for Palestine Action, we want to shut this company down. We want to stop, and we are taking action in order to stop all of their operations here in Britain. And the UN needs to stop being an obstacle and being a part of Albert Systems buyers. And they need to cut these contracts so Palestine Action can continue to shut these factories down without the UN assisting Israel's largest arms firm in this case.
You further, together with your colleagues, have staged a protest action by using a banner drop over Westminster Bridge. You've also lit smoke flares and delivered a speech stating that the UN must cease its procurement of Israeli military drones. You then, as your group of activists, marched to the United Nations Green, home to the UN Black Plaque Monument, marking the UN's Day of Social Justice. What sort of responses have you received to all of those protest actions?
Yeah, everyone that discovers how the UN is purchasing Israeli drones is very shocked and disturbed. To be honest, because often people look towards these institutions as beacons of so-called social justice, and to see that they are literally assisting in the injustice of the Palestinians in this case, the response was overwhelmingly positive for the action, but also shock and at the extent of how the UN is actually purchasing these drones. And I think it's very clear that the more people find out about this, the more it puts the UN in a dilemma where they have to address this hypocrisy, and they have to address the fact that this has been going on now for years, in order to have any standing in terms of, say, calling for social justice days across the world.
My final question, Huda. We understand that the contract for the UN's Mali operations is now open for renewal. And this action has been taken to send a very clear message that if the UN wants to preach social justice, then they must immediately cease their procurement of Albert's killer drones. Have you had a response to that at all?
No, we haven't had any response from the United Nations. And we expect that the first response should be that this has been immediately cancelled. But as you mentioned, this contract has gone under the radar in in a general sense, but that we are aware of it, and we've now made uh, but the public aware of this contract, and we expect that the UN will not renew this contract, and we look forward to seeing that the UN not continue with these contracts.
Are there further social responsibility messages and activism that you're going to carry through to, for the rest of the week or on an ongoing basis against this hypocrisy of the UN?
We've sent a message now that's a very clear message to the UN that we are aware of this, and we will see if there is any response. But otherwise, we will act as the same as with any other buyer of Israeli drones which have been tested on the Palestinian people, or any supplier or any landlord of Israel's largest arms firm, and we will take action to stop and end their complicity. But the UN have an opportunity here to end it themselves. If not, we will be taking more action against the UN.
Huda Ammori, co-founder of Palestine Action based in the UK. Thank you indeed. Keep up the activism. Just keep that flag flying as high as you possibly can. And we at Salam Media are totally and absolutely 100% behind you and the Palestinian people. Go well, and salam alaikum to you.
So
Time for me to wrap up. Thank you indeed for being on the show. A big shout out to Nasri Naidu, our producer, and Olani behind the controls. Do hope you've enjoyed all the interviews of the day. And from me till next week, Monday at the same time, as always, take care. Take care on the roads. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept all of your efforts, all of your du'as, and be with you every step of the way. Assalamu alaikum, and a khudafiz from me, Julie Ali.